To say that Taehyung was disappointed was an understatement. He was displeased. He was offended, even. First, Jungkook lied about the pregnancy. And then next, he begged for him to let him keep the baby. Did he look like someone who would kill his own blood? He might be stern and cold, but he was not a bad person. He was just bad at showing his emotions and at words, but he was not a bad person at all. He would have accepted the baby with open arms. He might not feel happy about having it at a young age and with someone he didn't love, but he would have willingly accepted it. Taehyung found it hard to show his feelings or what he has in mind, and this made other people easily misunderstand him. And now, the same happened to his husband. Thought that his husband didn't want anything to do with the baby in his womb. Jungkook's sobs got high when Taehyung glared at him, thinking the older was going to say something he would never want to hear. But he didn't understand that the glare was because the older felt like he didn't trust him. Taehyung felt betrayed because he thought that, finally, someone loved and believed in him besides his mother. But Jungkook clearly didn't. He clearly didn't have faith in him to even think about him like that. For the first time in years, Taehyung didn't feel alone when he had Jungkook. But now he felt like he didn't really have him. It was like the younger's presence was unreal, as if his actions were forced. And now, he could see the true Jungkook. He was lied to. Jungkook didn't like him, let alone love him. A deep groan escaped his lips, indicating how mad he was. He shouldn't be mad, he shouldn't have seen this coming. Their marriage was forced in the first place, so why would Jungkook's actions be genuine? Taehyung knew how anger could take over his body, and when it did, he didn't have any control over how he acted, so he left. He walked out of the room, out of the house, and into his car with only one thing in mind. He needed a drink, a couple maybe. And that was how he spent his day, drinking in a bar alone, ignoring whoever wanted to flirt with him. Jungkook could have sighed in relief when his husband left, but his chest tightened even more instead. That only meant Taehyung didn't want the baby. It was fine though, since he could take care of his baby alone, he sadly thought. He didn't want his baby to have a complicated family. He wanted them to have a whole, happy family like his before his parents died. He wanted them to feel the love of both their parents and not only their mother. But what could he do? The father didn't want them both, and he couldn't even complain because it wasn't Taehyung's fault that the baby was formed anyway. But still, the baby was his blood and flesh. He couldn't have at least shown a little love for it and not just walked away. After glaring at him as if he did something unforgivable when in reality, he was just carrying his child. He knew it was not healthy, but he cried himself to sleep that night. Days passed and Taehyung acted worse. He spent more time at work and barely stayed in their house. Jungkook was so close to forgetting they shared that house. He didn't bother visiting his husband and baby or ask how they were doing, but he made sure he was updated, thanks to their maids, and that Jungkook didn't know. Taehyung still cared about them after all, even if he wasn't showing it. He made sure the younger was taking care of himself and their baby. He made sure that the maids monitored his food, which should be healthy. Jungkook didn't complain, thankfully, since he loved those foods. Though, sometimes, his mouth was craving a weird combination. For that one time when the maids prepared vegetable salad, and when I say partnered, he literally mixed the ice cream with the salad. And don't forget when he still dipped it in mayonnaise. Or like that one time when he dipped mango, grapes, and apple in melted chocolate. Aside from eating and sleeping, Jungkook didn't do anything, so he was getting so bored that he started watching about pregnancy and how to properly take care of himself. He tried a little yoga. Of course, he didn't continue because he was too tired to do so. The maids, on the other hand, answered Taehyung's calls after lunch every day. He would ask the same question, but they didn't mind. After all, they found the couple cute. How was he? What did he eat for lunch? What is he doing now? The maid covered her mouth to stop herself from squealing. It was just too cute, how he would always worry about his husband without letting the other know that he was being taken care of by his husband. He had salmon for lunch like what she requested earlier this morning, although he also wanted to eat the fruit, kiwi, so he mixed them. She paused, hearing a soft chuckle from the other side of the phone. She let out a big smile, her heart fluttering at the thought of her boss lovingly watching over his husband in secret. He's currently watching his favorite cartoon like what he does every day after lunch, she continued, knowing for sure that the man was waiting for her to say that. She heard a hum and a few reminders to never tell his husband about him, calling them to monitor his day before he eventually ended the call. She then heard a distant whine, and without checking whoever the whine was from, she already knew it was from Jungkook. She walked closer to where the pregnant man was only to see him with another maid, whining about how much he wanted to see his husband before changing his words from "I want to see Taehyung now" to "I mean, the baby. The baby wants to see him now." The maid then chuckled lowly, shaking her head as she looked at Jungkook, who was pouting his lips, and then back to the phone in her hand. When will they ever realize it was a busy day for Taehyung? It was the middle of the day and he still has 4 more meetings. First was with his subordinates, then with a company partner, and then with 2 potential investors. He was tired, but resting wasn't included in his schedule. Honestly, his company was running smoothly, but Taehyung worked harder than any other man. He was the type who didn't want anyone or anything to distract him when he was working. He didn't like mixing personal matters with work, and he was known for it. That's why nobody dared to disturb him. When he was scanning through his files or when he was typing on his laptop, unless it was something really important. So when he hurriedly dashed out of the building on the way to the hospital, cancelling every meeting, here's when his mother called his number and told him that something happened to his husband. He immediately knew something in him changed, but he could barely care. Right now, his main concern was his husband and baby. And maybe that was the problem. The last time he was this nervous was when his father passed the company in his name. He didn't stop his eyebrows from furrowing in worry anymore. He felt his breath ragged and chest heavy, mind full of what-ifs, and negative thoughts making his knees feel weak. When he entered the hospital, the first thing he said was his husband's name, and it tasted new to his tongue. He didn't say that name often, but when he did, it made him shiver in an unexplainable way. He went straight to the emergency room where the nurse on the information desk instructed him. The scene he expected to see when he stepped into that room was his husband crying while clutching his stomach, maybe shouting in despair, or maybe just simply dazed, staring off into space. But thankfully, he wasn't. He was sleeping peacefully on the bed while his mom was caressing his head like he was his son. That was only when he got curious. Why was his husband in the hospital in the first place? Why was his mom with him? Why didn't the maids call him instead? Those questions were only answered when his mom lifted her eyes on him, her calm face immediately darkening, and her mouth couldn't stop the shout that came out of it. "Why aren't you taking care of your pregnant husband?" he gulped, knowing that his mother was utterly mad. I mean, who wouldn't be? She just found out that her son's husband was pregnant just because he almost lost the baby due to their lack of carefulness. She sighed. Seeing the worry in her son's eyes made her heart warm and soft again despite the madness she was feeling. They're both fine. He had a little accident at home and the maids contacted me when they couldn't reach you. Next time you're going to check on them, make sure you keep your phone by your side and not on silent mode too. That was when he remembered the calls that he missed just for his paperwork. He sighed, knowing it was his mistake. I know that it's hard for you to accept them both for now, but please, I promise you, you'll be happy if you try. Taehyung lifted his eyes to see his mom's face when he heard her hushed tone. She was serious, he could tell. I could try, he sighed. He saw his mom smile for the first time that day before saying, "That's all I'm asking for." True to his words, he did try to take care of his husband and baby. He stayed until Jungkook awoke, attended to his needs and wants, and of course, spent more time at home when he finally got discharged. Everything changed from rough to smooth. Jungkook didn't see it coming. He hadn't even expected it to happen, so when it did, he was beyond happy. He got to see his husband every day, morning and night, after he woke up and before he sleep. Taehyung would sometimes call him too when he was at work, and Jungkook swore he could feel as if he was floating on cloud nine whenever he heard his worried tone or his small chuckle when Jungkook said something funnily weird. They didn't talk about what happened when Taehyung found out about the baby. They didn't talk about the past week, just because they weren't comfortable with that topic. Like what they used to do, Jungkook started taking care of his husband again as well. Taking his coat off for him after a tiring day at work, giving him a new set of clothes to change into, and then serving his dinner. Only now, he wasn't the one to cook it, but Taehyung understood. And now, he would also give the younger milk before tucking him into bed. It was as if a switch was pushed and suddenly, the world turned upside down. Things were looking up. The younger's life was colorful and happy. Jungkook could feel Taehyung's love for him. If it was all a dream or an act, Jungkook didn't care because at least, he got to feel it even if it wasn't real. If the sweet acts were for the baby's sake, then Jungkook was willing to take advantage of it and get drunk with the affection his husband was showering him. Jungkook was in love, and he could finally accept it. So in love but couldn't say it. Maybe someday, he could say how the unreachable Kim Taehyung wasn't too high that he was able to reach him. Or maybe he would realize he aimed for something too high that his small hands just couldn't touch him. He couldn't tell, no one could because it was up to their destiny, and he will count on it.